This is the most important piece of advice right here. Always ask yourself, what do they want? This is the number one thing that will get you booked time and time again, and make sure that you are referred and brought back over and over again. Hey crew, and welcome back to my 5-part series on how to start a video business. If you haven't watched the first 2, you might want to do that because everything is in the correct order, so it leads up to this third one, which is how to find your very first clients and how to work with them, because those are 2 very important skills, and I think this is the point that makes or breaks your business. How do I get clients? How do I book them? Where are they? Where do I find my first client? You got to find a way to stand out. What is your unfair advantage? Because this is what's going to separate you from everybody else and propel you so far ahead of them that they're not even going to be competition anymore. And this is something that you may not even know yourself. I learned very quickly that people would come to me because I would explain things very easily. So let me share with you my own personal story. My competition were people who never had a filmmaking background. They had it just like a video background. So their work looked like video. Whereas when people hired me to do work, it looked like a movie. And they were suddenly like, Sidney's the one to go to if you want almost the exact same price, but it looks 10 times better than what everybody else was doing. Okay, so we talked about unfair advantage and building trust, but we haven't really quite hit how to find your first client. So let me address that right now. So you're going to have to pick one of 3 paths. 1, you're going to have to work for free. 2, you work for somebody else temporarily. Or 3, you work at a discounted price. So if you're going to film school right now, or an art school, or you're doing volunteer work for your church, your local community, or a friend, that is working for free. And it's really great. You can get a lot of experience that way and build up your portfolio. So make sure that if you're working for free, you're doing this before you leave your old job. Give yourself some runway time to be able to build up that portfolio so you can hit the ground running from day 1. Option number 2 is actually a really good option, working for somebody else. This is good for somebody who doesn't quite have the experience. If you work for somebody else, make sure to pick somebody who you can learn from. Don't just work for somebody else just to be able to grab some quick cash, because those kind of situations usually don't have long-term value for you. So if you can work for somebody else and they're somebody that you enjoy working with, somebody that you can see in the future collaborating with, there's a good chance that in the future, if they have a big project, they'll bring you back on board because they trust you and they need your help. Think of it as an opportunity to not only network, which is another great way of, getting clients, but network, learn under somebody else, and get paid for now under them. This is really great because then you could say, hey, I was a part of this award-winning team that got an Emmy award for this product, or, oh yeah, I was able to, be the assistant editor on this job that ended up winning at this film festival. So you get to kind of, in a good way, ride the coattails of somebody bigger to have these really cool projects under your belt. Okay, now let's talk about doing things on your own, which is probably the biggest one. There's a couple ways that you can do this. Let's take, for example, you want to become a real estate videographer. Are you going to go to open houses and hover around and hand out your cards to real estate agents when they're just like, excuse me, I'm trying to show the house. I'm busy. Great. Thanks for your card. Okay. Bye. We already photographed this house. You can see the pictures online. I use this videographer. Clearly this person did a good job because now we have this open house and people are showing up. Are they going to use you? Probably not unless the other person vanishes, right? That is a situation where you have to make sure that you are hunting in the right areas. So what you want to do is maybe go to an Airbnb owners gathering, right? Where all the Airbnb owners get together to try and network and do things. So you can say, hey, I'm not an Airbnb owner, but I take videos and photos so that you can use these to post on your website. Did you know that, when people book that booking for the Airbnb, yeah, the title's important, the location's important, price is important, but what really sells them is on the video and photo content. Can you imagine if you had a video walkthrough of your property alongside some really, really well done photos? Here's my card. That is how you get your first client. Let's keep expanding. Let's say that you want to be a wedding videographer. Are you going to go to every single bride and groom every single time and be like, hey, I see you have a wedding coming up. Can I be your videographer? Here's my pricing. If you try and hunt every single time, you're going to be so exhausted. What you want is to gather as many clients into one pile as possible. What do you think that looks like? Well, for me, it might be going to catering companies and just tell the venue, like, I will give you 50%, or whatever. I'll give you 50% if you package me with each one. So now instead of going to every single bride and groom, you're just rolling anyone who comes in for that venue, that event, they're booking you, right? So instead of picking one client at a time and trying to convince them, you just pick one venue at a time and you convince them. And then now you are their go-to videographer. So that's another way to do it. Let's keep talking about maybe corporate. For me, I go through agencies. So there's a couple agencies here in Colorado that I work with. And basically what they do is they keep me on the books. And whenever a job comes up that they think I'm qualified for, they automatically send my resume and my portfolio to that client, and that client can say yes or no. And then the agency calls me and lets me know, like, hey, they're interested in booking you, like, what times are you available? For me, my local agency, I probably get 4 or 5 leads a week, and I can choose to take them or turn them down. They take a percentage of the money from the client, not from you. So you should not have to pay an agency ever. They're getting paid almost as like the matchmaker by the company, the corporation, the client, whoever that posts the job. So there's no additional money on your end. Now, there are some paid websites that you can do, like 10 to 15 bucks a month in order to get access to exclusive jobs. You have to supply your resume every single time. Know that these are one-offs, so yeah, you are constantly job hunting. These are the ones that I do not do. To me, it just takes up way too much time to try and hunt. But in the very beginning, if you need to know where jobs are, go here. Tons of jobs listed. There's even a Facebook group that's called I Need a Production Assistant. Why don't you go there and try and find a job? So you can use social media as well. Go into groups like I need an editor, I need a production assistant, I need a drone operator, and you can find a lot of jobs that are posted there. In general, they tend to be a little bit lower quality only because they're not paying that fee to an agency. So I wouldn't say that they're a little less serious or less quality, but they may not pay as well. They may also just want to hire you for, like 4 hours or a single day. It may not be very organized, and they may not be able to use you in the future. So evergreen work is not available. But the most important thing is early in the beginning, just get a few under your belt. Get some jobs under your belt, build up your portfolio, and always, always, always ask for a referral. Referrals are important because now you basically have people working for you to bring you more work. And if you did a good job and it was a wonderful experience, you're going to get referrals. For me, these days, especially starting my new business since I left my old job a couple months ago, I 100% work off of referrals. Not a single client that I work with today is somebody that I had to go headhunt. Build up your network, do a great job, and over time, you will build up a referral network. Here's one sales tactic that you can use to get work without coming off as salesy. So I'm going to go through a script of what not to do and then what to do. So here's what not to do. Hey, you work for a big company. I just became a videographer. You're my friend. Like, can you get me in with work? Like, do they have work that you can give me? And your friend's gonna be like, I guess I could ask my boss. We don't really need anything. And then suddenly you've put everybody in a very uncomfortable situation. They're a little nervous. They don't want to look bad at their work. It's kind of unfair to put your friend in that spot. You always want everybody to win. You never want it to be a situation where somebody doesn't get something out of it. It sounds weird when you're just like, everybody wins. I'm not talking about that. So let me explain what to do, and I think this will make sense. You're gonna go up to your friend and you're gonna say, hey, I just started my own video business. Do you know anyone off the top of your head who needs video services, and can you put me in touch with them? If you know anyone who needs video services, just let me know, okay? I'll make sure to tip you. Suddenly everybody wins, right? They're going to get a finder's fee. There's no pressure on them. They might even say, you know what? My boss needs a videographer. And then what they'll do is they'll refer you. You are good on your promise and you're like, hey, I'll give you $100 as a thank you. And then you get put in touch with the client. They get an awesome videographer, you get work, and your friend gets paid. Don't ever put somebody in a position where they're going to feel bad about trying to help you. You have to be able to have the initiative to go and ask people for work in a way that doesn't sound sales sleazy. And the best way to do it is just follow that philosophy. You have to make sure everybody wins. A couple other notes on job hunting. Do you need a resume in order to land clients? And the answer is no, not unless you work for corporate. Do you need a film degree to land clients? Also no, unless you work for corporate. If you have a really solid portfolio, you might be able to get away with it. Corporate's the only one that really cares, which is why I have a master's degree and like an amazing resume that just lists a whole bunch of junk that I've done over the years, and it looks really impressive. I like to throw out Fortune 100 clients left and right because it's true, I've worked for a lot of them, so that is an unfair advantage that I have. But for the most part, you're never going to get hired based on your resume. You're going to get hired based on your demo reel. So make sure you have a really solid demo reel. Do you need an additional business license for any of the types of jobs? It depends. Like, for example, you might have to get safety certified if you work in construction or something like that. You might have to go by OSHA rules. So whenever you book a client, just make sure that you are qualified. Do you need to be camera certified? This depends. On certain film shoots, they might say, looking for somebody who knows how to use an Arri Alexa. Looking for somebody who knows how to use Panasonics. And in that case, yeah, you should probably learn. Do you need to go in for a formal job interview to be hired on most of these? I would say it's like 20% yes and 80% no. 80% of the time I'm getting hired just on, hey, we like your resume, you're hired. 20% of the time I am asked to come in, formally interview with them, pop out of your videographer, filmmaker brain, and set it aside for a second, and you need to become corporate brain, right? So you need to become kind of a salesperson, kind of a marketer, and you need to speak the corporate language. This doesn't mean be fake, okay? This does not. What it means is you need to present yourself professionally. And the number one thing of this entire video, this is the most important piece of advice right here. You need to always ask yourself, what do they want? This is the number one thing that will get you through all these projects, get you booked time and time again, and make sure that you were referred and brought back over and over again. This is the most important thing. Make sure to ask, what do they want? So let's go through a mock interview. You're going to show up and they're going to have you sit down and they're probably going to say, okay, so, tell me about yourself and your work. Very broad question. That's usually what they start with. Remember, corporate wants results. So I do this instead of being like, yeah, I went to film school and I love filmmaking and I just really love making videos. And yeah, I saw your job posting. I thought it would look really cool. And now I'm here. No, don't do that. When you're sitting in the interviewee chair, you need to think, what does this person want? What do they want to hear from me? And your answer should be something more like this. Yeah, so my name is Sidney Reed. I went to school for filmmaking. I earned my master's, and ever since then, I've been working for Fortune 100 companies. I specialize in corporate filmmaking, short documentaries, mostly like a lot in aerospace and military. So I see, your company was really great. They're doing all this technology for the Air Force, and your tech is amazing, but it's hard to tell in photos. So I think by hiring me, you'll have some videos now that can really show how the technology works. And I think that's going to be a massive selling point. And besides, who doesn't want to film helicopters? I certainly do. There, okay, right? So you sound enthusiastic, you like the tech, you explain to them without insulting them, hey, you're doing good, but here's a pain point you have, here's something you're missing, here's my solution. If you hire me, I can fix it for you. And by the way, I love it. It's all fun, it's all exciting. Like that single answer hit those key points. So when you go into the interview, think about what is the problem that they are trying to solve. And what you want to do in the interview is you want to raise those questions and hint that you can solve them, but don't give them the answer. You're not there at the job interview to be their consultant, their advisor. You're there to raise those questions. Very subtly start talking as if you already work for them. Don't be like, so when I work for you guys, I'll create a plan. Don't do that. It sounds like really tacky and arrogant, but what you would want to say is like, yeah, so if we work together, I'll just make sure to, note that for the future. Be soft about it. Just because your language is soft doesn't mean that you come off as, unconfident or like, I hope you guys hire me. It's a different way of doing it, right? It's a psychology method of just being like, hey, if you guys hire me, that's great. Just know that if you do, I have this plan in place that I recognize before I ever start working for you what the problems are. And from day one, I'll be able to solve them. I do understand that this is going to be very hard in the beginning when you don't have experience, especially if you're young. Even if you're older, like maybe you've always worked a desk job where you haven't been a manager. Maybe you've never worked for a company where you're always doing like client-facing projects. Maybe you were a software developer, or maybe you were doing, some other project. And so just know that it's the same with filmmaking, right? You have to put in the hours to practice. Practice your social skills. Try and get clients who pay you reoccurring amounts. There's two advantages to that. One, you get to be a part of a company. And even though you're not their employee, you get to do continuous work for them. And it's just, over time, you get to know them better and you just produce better work overall. The one-off gigs are good practice, but I think my best work comes from working with a company for a long time, fully understanding them, building that relationship, getting consistent income so I feel comfortable, and then I produce my best work, right? Because obviously I'm more relaxed. Another way to do this is to try and work with contracts, right? So I talked about those agencies before. You can work for an agency and have a 1-year contract. This is actually what I did with Microsoft. I worked for them for 1 year as their videographer. It was an awesome experience, consistent income, and I could still do gig work on the side. So you get your first client, you do the work. The aftermath of this is doing the billing. Make sure, again, it's clean, concise, very organized. You documented everything. Make sure to put that in QuickBooks and see, did you actually earn money, right? If you weren't profitable after taxes, you might need to adjust your prices. Over time, like it's a game, right? You can increase higher and higher and higher. But in the beginning, you have to start low, right? You gotta book your first couple of clients, get reviews, get referrals from them, build up from there. Then you can increase, like maybe you make your videos another $100 for this one. You tack on another 200 and you keep lifting over time. Just one last little quick tip here that I think is very important. When you work with your client, just, how do I put this? Like, just be easy to work with. I know this sounds weird, right? This sounds weird, but your job as the filmmaker is to ask qualifying questions and to make sure that the process of working with the client goes butter smooth. And if an issue does pop up, don't get defensive. You might get irritated. Do that at home. Go vent to your friends, go vent to your family, go vent to your spouse, whatever. But internally, just know that they aren't trying to screw you over, right? There's miscommunication. It happens. And you know what? Your job is to just take care of it. Just get it done. Money is not the end all. In the beginning, don't be obsessive about money. Make sure that it's quality, because if you make this client happy, they're going to be your first referral. So make sure that that happens. All right. As always, go make a film, go start your business, and I'll see you in part 4.